and welcome to this week's episode of Out of State DMing. I'm your host, Lux Blackheart. Today's episode we will be doing a brief recap and then future episode. Not future episodes, length. The past couple of episodes we've talked about gear, general equipment, weapons, armor, and just the gear you need to do your adventuring. So to recap on several things, so that way everyone can get a quick refresher. Weapons. My brain just stopped working for a moment. To recap this, it's generally good to not necessarily go for the fanciest of weapons or a larger variety of weapons or the most expensive weapons, because again you have to remember you don't start out with 1,000,000 gold pieces. If you're lucky you can get around 200. If you're unlucky, based on class, you don't really have enough to buy some of the bigger fancier weapons. So going relatively cheap is the best option, because again, look at more of what the weapon can do, not necessarily the price tag or whether it's fancy or not. There's even a dagger can win you a fight at the end of the day, instead of just trying to overspend on some really expensive weapon. And that's for both melee and ranged weapons. Also remember that if you're trying to go for melee, stick with melee. If you're trying to go for range, it's best to stick with range because of what attributes to go into and what feats correspond with one another. Because you have to remember, melee feats don't actually do well with range because they don't work with range, while range feats also don't work with melee feats. So kind of pick a right lane, stay in it, because that will help you short and in the long run succeed in combat, so you don't make oopsies like not taking feats when you should, or just taking the wrong feats and then using weapons that don't actually work those feats. A similar thing can be done with armor. If you're not proficient in the armor, my recommendation, don't wear the armor. Even if it has really good benefits, the armor check penalty hitting your attack bonuses can and will hurt you in the long run because you're not proficient in it. Also, just like with weapons, cheap armor generally can help you out in the long run, mainly because you can afford to get a bunch of the different equipment and or other things, because you're not spending all your money on big hulking pieces of equipment. Because you have to also look at like the max dex bonus for it. Because you have high enough dex, you can afford to actually have a high AC with the lower, cheaper equipment than you would with the higher bonus armor that not only costs more, but it doesn't actually let you use a whole lot of your your max dex on it. So for high dex builds, the light armor is generally your best friend. When it comes to general equipment, like I said in previous episode, you can, over time of playing, formulate your own equipment list, as like this is what you get every single game session. If the DM has it, it's usually good to go with his recommendations. If you want to wing it every single time, go for it. Just make sure that whatever you're taking is either going to be something that you'll eventually use, or something specific to what you're trying to do. Like, rogues need the thieves' tools. People trying to healer need the healing kit. If you're trying to get certain equipment bonuses to skills, make sure you have those pieces of equipment. So it's generally good to read the equipment. And I'm not even lying. If you don't read the equipment, you don't really know what it's used for other than assumed uses. So it's kind of like make sure you're not just getting wasteful equipment. If your DM's using equipment substitutes, whether it be weapon, armor, or general equipment, he's probably doing it for a reason. Like, for instance, I like using lighter tents. got that from a third source book. Also, same book I got the universal rations out of. They take up less weight, they last longer, and you're generally not actually spending more money on trail rations. There's different weapons to use. Like if you want to have a more sea-based game, there's like chitinous armor, shark hide armor. There's also like cutlasses. So like depending on the scenario that the DM's trying to offer, they may or may not offer regional and or campaign specific equipment that they're pulling from other sources to help supplement the campaign to make everything better. Rule of thumb, doesn't matter how stupid the piece of equipment is, how redundant it is, or if it's simply just, oh, it's this but renamed. It's generally good to not argue or fight with your DM about particular things, simply because you're slowing down everything. You're taking time that the game doesn't actually have to simply try to argue or fight with the DM about something you don't particularly agree with because they're throwing stuff in that you don't like. Like, I know a lot of people who do seafaring campaigns like to throw in gunpowder and gunpowder related shenanigans. That doesn't always work because a lot of people rather not have to do anything with guns. They don't want the flintlocks. They don't want the muskets. They don't want the black powder bombs. They don't want TNT. They don't want any of that stuff because to them it takes away from D&D, even though it's part of D&D, because you can literally find it in the DMG. Or if you're outsourcing to other sources to supplement how things go, this area is the actual campaign setup that utilize that stuff. So it's also generally good term when it comes to knowing what your character can and cannot have access to is know what type of campaign you're going into, because that right there dictates how you're going to approach what equipment you may or may not need. Because if you go for a campaign and you think it's just going to be a generic dungeon diver campaign, but then it turns out that, oh, the party has to go through all these different environments to get to this thing over here, and you're like, well, I bought all this equipment, but it's not going to do good there because you don't have anything that's going to help you travel that long distance. Go that distance. And no, it is not the DM's job to just toss things at you. It's not their job to go, well, because you didn't buy the correct equipment, I'm just giving you correct equipment. The only thing the DM has to do when it comes to your equipment, no matter if it's weapons, armor, or gear, is go, this is the type of campaign this is. Make sure you're geared for that type of campaign. So, because you wouldn't imagine how many times I've had to look at a DM and call him an asshole because they gave the look and feel that's just going to be a dungeon crawler, but oh no, it's a sea-based campaign. Well, everyone's where has a lot of equipment, nothing water-based, and they're wearing things that are just going to make it horrible at doing swimming or even climbing. And the except as I've ran into those DMs that have done that, and they're like, no, we're not going to let you redo any of your equipment. You said your character's done. We're going with it. It's like you have an entire party of people that aren't suitable for a sea-based campaign, and you're going to sit there and now force them to do the sea-based campaign simply because you're an ass. So the only thing, like I said, the DM has to actually do is make sure that you're geared properly for the campaign. Whether or not you have all the money the DM wants you to have, all the equipment the DM wants you to have, the DM has to go. This is going to be more outdoors, less about dungeons, more about exploring the world, doing this here. So make sure you have plenty of equipment that can help you survive in it. If it is a dungeon crawler, you don't unless you're traveling to those dungeons, you don't need actual long distance traveling gear. You need enough gear to get you to wherever the dungeon is and back. That's it. Some campaigns have dungeons that are literally adjacent or in the city you're in because it's part of that city to go do stuff in that dungeon. So like there's particular gimmicks to any type of campaign, and it's just really good to know what you're getting into before you just buy a bunch of random equipment and then realize that you don't have the right equipment. So just work with your DM. When it comes to sharing equipment from the beginning, and or because some people tend to force certain things buying it for them, the only way that actually works is if the characters are showing up together as part of their backstory, their sibling, some sort of siblings or family relations, or they've done minor things together. They grew up together. They have something that connects them, that gives them the bond that would actually have people share things, not just, oh, I don't know this person. I don't know they need it, but I'm going to get it for them anyways. This the only way to work around that is to simply conveniently have just enough money to buy that item, so when the party goes to go their adventure, you go, oh, you need this? How much does it cost? Oh, I have just enough money to buy that. Oh, to give it to you so you can have it. Here's this amount of money here. Now go buy it. That is the easiest way to actually circumvent that without having to actually have some form of actual background and knowledge about what they may or may not need. So it's generally good for party members to have it already worked in that they know each other by some way. If that, again, is not the case, it doesn't matter what they're bringing in. It doesn't matter what they can't bring in. What it matters is what you bring in. Because again, your character, if your character does not know them, you do not know what they have nor what they need. So you technically cannot, without metagaming, bring in stuff for them. Because again, that's not information your character would have, so therefore you can't act upon it. That is a big thing that I've seen happen multiple times. And if a DM permits it, well, then it's called DM prerogative. And there's a lot of players out there that will go, no, I get to do this, and they're willing to fight you on that hill. When it's like, actually, no, because you're literally coming from different regions, different social classes, different all this stuff here. Why are you bringing this weapon that this person can use? Why? Your character wouldn't do that. Your character doesn't know them. And then through gameplay, they prove that they wouldn't do that by being more selfish and greedy, self-serving, and just not actually caring about what other people need, because they're like, oh, they have their money, they can buy it themselves. Even if they don't have the money, it's like, you started being overly generous and just handing things out to people, and now you're literally, when you've trauma bonded through these fights, when you bonded through the travel, when you have actual connections with people, you now suddenly don't make it make sense. A lot of players don't make it make sense because they don't care. Hi, almighty saint. Have you been saintly lately? Have you been a good saint? You better have. Yeah. Um, yeah, but a big thing is focus on what your character needs. And if you have excess money, well, you don't have to spend all your money. You need to only spend enough to get you what you need. If you have excess, you have excess. And if it's conveniently is enough money to help equip other party members because they didn't get as much money as you, or they don't have certain right things, well, that's completely and totally
Laundry monster!
Can you shut up? I'm doing the podcast. Yes, I will be rude. Don't make me shut my door. Yes, rude people. So yes, Saint, you can poke fun at her because she's being rude, extremely rude. No, but leaving that off. The next couple, I will remember to say hi. Hi. Yeah, she's still trying to interrupt this. No, the future episodes, upcoming episodes, will be delving into magic, how magic works, and then we'll be eventually seeping into spell lists, pretty much what the different casters actually get access to, before eventually seeping into the spells themselves. And that particular set of episodes most likely will be quite long. Because there's a lot to go over. Because there is the nuances with the magic, what you need to do to be able to cast the magic and whatnot, what you can and cannot actually pull off and do. Because there is a lot of random things a lot of people do mess up about magic, but we will be going over those in those future episodes starting next week. Dun dun dun. Dun dun. And I will be having a surprise guest. Because there is people that want to go over magic and stuff. Be part of when I go over magic and stuff. So there's going to be a portion, nice, where I won't just be talking aimlessly into the microphone. Aimlessly. There'll be also a person here for me to actually be bouncing stuff off of. So I hope everyone who sees this looks forward to that surprise guest. Dun dun dun. Dun dun. But to just sum it up, work with your DM, and I hope you look forward to me going over magic. So I will see you on next week's episode of Out of State DMing. Remember to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.